Folks, welcome to Inside Arm Wrestling, the home for all news on arm wrestling, fitness, strength sports, and competition. Today, we have a lot to talk about in the world of arm wrestling, fitness, and strength. But before we do, I am looking at all of the cameras set up here at our little local studio. We are cranking. I'll be honest with you. I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 different shots going on right now. Feeling the love of where we're going with this production, because soon we will be our sports and news channel, Inside Arm Wrestling. Now, folks, I know a lot of people are talking about Inside Arm Wrestling, which is great. And we're going to dedicate a full segment of Inside Arm Wrestling here on YouTube to what it's going to look like in terms of you as the content providers. But we're not there. And really the reason why we're not there is it's not because we're not signed in. It's because I want to make sure that we have all of the pieces together that make the data sheets, the metadata, the onboarding as seamless as possible for all of our content providers, as well as we want to go through the process of doing our own due diligence of the uploading process. What are our quality controls? So although we've put out the final statement that we are going to be worldwide and an exclusive channel, it is also a step only in the right direction because we still have a few more steps on an operations end that we really want to get through. So be patient with us. We have data coming out for all of our content providers that we have talked to and those that we haven't yet. But before we start inundating ourselves with a lot of input and downloads, we want to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row and we're prepared to be able to take them successfully. So having said that, take the glasses off. You know, I've noticed in these videos, and I've got to keep my eyes wide open because I almost look like I'm squinting or sleeping, which is actually a weird thing to me because I'm not. I'm looking at the camera. But it looked like the last couple of videos I was squinting, maybe because I had a light in front of my eyes. Not quite sure. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of arm wrestling. Folks, last week we had the Olympia, and if you were out there on the Olympia convention or watched the Olympia in the audience, you might have seen me. I was walking around with my World Series of Armwrestling shirt on one day and my Salmon Vineyard Vine shirt on the other day. But it was a great experience. Let me tell you something. The Friday walking into the Olympia was by far the best Olympia that I have seen in about 6 years. As I go to this camera, it's been a long, hard pull for the Olympia, and the Friday show walking in certainly looked as if it was a great event in terms of bringing in booth sponsors. It was well attended, and ultimately the vibe itself walking in was really cool. Years past, I'm not going to say that it wasn't a good vibe, but there was always something missing. And certainly from COVID forward, we hadn't seen really a big rebound in the convention itself. And I'm actually kind of glad we did. So we walked in, I walked in, the mouse in my pocket and myself, walked in, and I'll be honest with you, it was great to see a lot of the old bodybuilding friends that I had. I met a bunch of new ones. To those young influencers that I just have no idea who you are, and I apologize. It doesn't mean that you guys are not doing what you're supposed to do. I'm a 54-year-old man. If you're not reaching me, you're probably okay because I'm not in that 18 or 16 to 30 demographic. So my apologies to all of those influencers that I may have said hi to. Ask that stupid question of, who are you or what do you do? It's not because you're not doing what you're supposed to. It's just I'm old. That's how it is, But having said that, I was able to catch up with a new friend. Monica Brandt was there with a company called STEM Regen, which we're hoping to do some business with here in the future. But in seeing that she was having her podcast, I decided to ask who was doing the production. And a little bit tongue-in-cheek, which was actually a good thing because I'm never too shy to ask. I asked the producer, who happened to be, I found out, her husband, would Monica ever bring on somebody who wanted to talk about arm wrestling? And that I owned the World Series of Armwrestling. And they were incredibly gracious. They fit me in for a 15-minute segment. Monica is just an amazing, amazing woman. She has an ageless look about her. I first saw Monica on the stage in 1998, I think it was. Her first year, she won the Miss Olympia Fitness. And I've watched her career over the years. She's really a mainstay in terms of the women's movement of bodybuilding, and certainly an extremely pleasant person to talk to, knowledgeable about the sport, intuitive on the mic. And we're actually looking to maybe work with Monica and her husband here in the future, because we're looking to really bridge that gap between two kind of parallel genres, if you will, of bodybuilding and arm wrestling. So thank you, Monica, for taking the time to talk to an old man like me. And yes, we will talk about earthworms the next time out. That's a little bit of a side joke, but it will happen. We will have that podcast. Was able to say hi to Dave Palumbo. Actually, he got all out of his podcast with Monica as I was walking in for mine. Great to see Dave. Highlight of our event, I think, for me walking around was finally getting to say hi to Michael Hearn. What a nice guy. We have common friends in value. He was nice enough to shoot a little video with me and him, impromptu. Certainly a guy that takes a lot of heat for a lot of things. But when you look at the career of Michael Hearn, the man has spanned decades. He looks great. He's in tremendous shape. He's articulate. There was probably the largest line for him to be seen with him at Titan Medical Centers out of all of the booths. So, he still draws. And what a classy, terrific guy. And he just finishing up some work with Chris Moss, who is our star in Got You. So I'm doing a lot of shameless plugs here, guys. It is without a doubt great to be in front of so many different cameras. I keep looking left. I keep left. I keep looking right. I keep looking center. Got to get my lefts and rights together. But we did get to talk to the guys from Bucked Up again. Ryan and I had a great chat. Great to see Ryan. Mark from Uprising. We got to work out one day. Got to see him at the expo a couple days. Got to meet back up with Flex Wheeler. And you know what? All in all, it was a very, very successful convention for me personally in what we do. As well as if you looked at some of the competitions, I think that, deservingly so. We've got a new Mr. Olympia, Samson Dowda. Now, I will say this. I was a little bit critical on Samson going after an event in Europe and France 2 weeks prior. To me, it wasn't that I was concerned for him as an athlete to be able to make his best from 2 weeks out to the time of the Olympia. It was more of taking the chance of being exposed to so many elements that could have ruined the man's chances of winning. Travel tardiness. It's always hard to go time zone to time zone. I think it's a 7-hour time zone difference from Las Vegas to France. You're in front of more people. When you're dieting down, you're taking your body to its extremes. And when you take your body to its extremes, your internal systems sometimes shut down. Your immunity or immunization of variables. What's the word I really want to use? Your immunity, not your immunity system. God, I'm going to have to, I don't usually edit this, but I may end up because I'm really tongue-tied on this. However, your immune system, thank you for coming through, brain, sometimes can get impacted because you're going through different changes. You might be fighting a local cold that maybe came your way at a show or in transportation. I thought it was a risk, but you know what? The man came back and did an amazing job. He looked fantastic. Kudos to him. I thought Hadi looked really good. I think his legs were maybe a little bit off, downsized. His conditioning is always amazing. I'm not a bodybuilder, newscaster here, but, I do follow the sport because of the love of the sport and the fact that I've owned 18 gyms over the course of a few decades. So I've always been a passionate bodybuilder fan. But I think Hadi as a whole looked great. I just think Samson is just you know what it is that when you have somebody who's maybe 5'7", 5'8", and now you've got someone who's 4 or 5 inches taller with an impressive V-taper and physique, there's just a wow factor. And I think a bigger man always beats a smaller man when it comes to bodybuilding if the proportions are directly in line with each other. You looked at Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu all those years ago. Franco was a smaller man, would always win the lighter divisions. However, Arnold would always take the overall. And I think that's really the answer to what we saw here. Samson just looked powerful. He looked big. He looked impressive. And I'll be honest with you, if he continues to grow the way he has over the last 2 years, I mean, he may be a generational champion, just like a Phil Heath. So kudos to Samson. He looked amazing. We all know Chris Bumstead has retired. That was part of the news of the Olympia. A great 6-time classic, Mr. O, has retired. Did it in great fashion. Honestly, the man probably is more famous than any other bodybuilder that's out there right now. I mean, with just the following and his engagement on the social media platforms, it's hard to believe that a class that was made to really bring more athletes into the mix to help support bodybuilding has now eclipsed bodybuilding in terms of the open class, in terms of popularity. And there were 60 men on stage. It was a big class, and they held it right at the convention. It was very impressive. So kudos to Chris Bumstead. He looked great. Keon Pearson, he was Mr. 212 once again. Keon looked amazing. Nothing short of what we expected from him. So all in all, wrapped up on a bodybuilding end, it was just tremendous. It was great. Thank you to the Olympia. Also, want to talk a little bit about Bill Collins and the UAL. Bill and I got a chance to catch up a little bit. It's a frustrating point when it comes to these conventions because you're really, really tied into scheduling. And I think in hindsight, as Bill and I were talking, it's always hard to throw a 2-day tournament, especially with one of the days being on a Friday, because ultimately you're basically splitting your entries where you would be able to do the tournament all in one day on a Saturday. So you're doubling your overhead. You're splitting the entries between 2 days. It was great to see that it was supported on some levels. Sad to say that Friday seemed to be a little bit light, and Saturday. I know a lot of the pullers from the Florida Arm Wrestling League were coming. Sadly, Milton hurt them in terms of travel. Their travel plans were cut short. In classic Bill fashion, threw a great tournament. Had Bruce Way there. That was an impressive day for anyone who's an arm wrestling fan to see John Grizzly from Over the Top. He was the highlight, I think, of a lot of people's days. I did get to see some of it. I know Leroy Walker had a really good day. He did win against Brandon Allen. I didn't get to see the 4-way. My apologies. There were a couple other matches out there that I didn't really get to see. I know Jordan still dominated on his match. All in all, though, there were really I'll be honest with you, some really good athletes. Pablo out. I got to finally meet him. He was there. What a beast that guy is. He's a big man. No wonder he is doing so well in the world of arm wrestling. But all in all, kudos to Bill. He had top-notch awards, and really he always brings a class act. Unfortunately, when it comes to events like the Olympia or these 2-day or 3-day events where you have to meet a schedule, you're basically splitting your potential of a 1-day tournament and a great 1-day tournament turnout into 2 or maybe 3 days, which makes it difficult, coupled with a very limited weigh-in schedule for the event. Bill just did an amazing job, and we're always glad to be able to say hi and support them. They're really a class act. Now, having said all that, folks, we are going to take a quick look at East versus West. East versus West, On November 2nd, you may say, Greg, why would you report on something that is on the same day as you? And the answer is this is Inside Arm Wrestling. Has nothing to do with World Series of Arm Wrestling. Has everything to do with the sports and the news of arm wrestling. So without belating that too much, it's an interesting card. Now, we did see this past week that the Challenger Series was cut short due to funding. I'm not sure if they really wanted to post that or not that way. Could have been because of the hurricane. Could have been for many reasons, but they posted it was for funding. So the Challenger Series is off. However, for November 2nd, I think the highlights of this card on the American side, we do have, or I should say American or North American side, we do have Devin Lorette out there versus Oleg Petrenkov. That is a right arm, light heavyweight title match. We have Todd Hutchins versus Yoshinobu Kanai. That is for a light heavyweight super match. The world title is on the Devin, super match on the Todd. You've got Vitali versus Georgie in that card. It looks like from the poster, there it is. You got Michael Todd versus Gennady. You got Irakli versus Georgie on a middleweight super match. So you've got a bunch of really compelling matches here. If I pull up the screen, if you look at it, it's a very stacked card. There are some movement matches out there, folks. And I think that Michael is on the move. Hopefully Michael is moving in a direction where winning or taking a victory against Gennady will give him a chance to go after Levon. Looking across, I'm not seeing any matches per se that are setting themselves up to a world title match, but maybe Todd Hutchins versus Yoshinobu Kanai. That may put one of those two in line for a world title. But an overall great card. You look at their sponsors of Gold Star Coffee, the Beard Struggle. You have to go to Core Sports if you want to see it. It is a pay-per-view. It is November 2nd in Istanbul. So what I would suggest is if you have an opportunity and you're not competing in the World Series of Arm Wrestling that same day, to give a tune in for them, because they certainly always can and want the eyeballs on the product. And if you're supporting them, it always goes to the bottom line of arm wrestling. So, having said that, looking across there, any shouts out? Let me tell you, I want to shout out Natalie Eva Marie, WWE star. What a sweetheart she was. I got to meet her at the Rain booth. Actually, I saw her at the Dragon's Lair gym and watched her do a contest grand prize where she worked out with two lucky winners. And then I got to meet her the day of the convention. She took a good 7-10 minutes of worth of time. We talked a little bit about arm wrestling and how we might be able to work together in the future. Shout out to her. She's just an amazing personality, very pretty young lady. Her husband, Jonathan, also a fitness model. So very fit people in a very fit industry. And then it was always good to see Mark over at Uprising. Certainly, always great to catch up with some different familiar faces that unfortunately we only get to see maybe once every year when it comes to convention. Some of this twice between the Arnold and the Olympia. But great to see everybody. And you know what? I'm just super excited for the Arnold this year to be able to go back out and see some of the people that I got to see again and keep in touch. So, having said that, guys, that does it for another edition of Inside Arm Wrestling News Report. This has been Greg Sharp reminding you to train hard, pull smart, and live safe, guys. It's Wednesday. It's October 23rd. And obviously, folks, we are gearing up. We will see you Friday where we will do a World Series of Arm Wrestling preview before the big event. Folks, if you like these stories and you want to see more, please hit the like button and subscribe to our page. Also hit the notification bell underneath the video so that way you're notified every time a new video comes out. And if you're on social media, specifically Instagram, go to the World Series of Armwrestling Instagram page. Please follow it. We'll try to follow you back, but it'll keep you up to date with all of the news and events in the world of arm wrestling.